Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel Tiny Learn Hub and welcome back to SQL interview series. In our previous episode, we learned difference between union and union all. Today we are moving into another extremely important SQL interview topic, that is exist and in. That is the difference between these two. So now at first glance, these two looks very different and but there is a interesting part into it. So in many situations, both can answer the same business question. So why do you have the both thing? So when should we use the in and when we use the exists? Now exists really faster than in. So this kind of question are coming from this thing. So that's what we are going to find out today. We'll also learn like you one of the situation where not in can behave exactly because of null. And this kind of behavior is sort of unexpectedly behavior. So let's get started. Now in our tables, I have created two separate tables, that is customers and orders. So in here, the 13 is like I gave it for the our video series, nothing much. So you can change it as your perspective. Okay. So these are the customer table. If there is any kind of customer table on behalf of this name, so it will drop it and it will create the new table. So I created the tables for these two and these tables are created. Now let's execute the query. So yeah, so this is a customer table. Let me expand it so it will be easy for you to see. So this is a customer table and this is the orders table. Okay, so imagine you are working on a e-commerce application and you have the customers table. So we also have the orders tables. Now your manager asks you, give me the names of customers who have placed at least one order. So this is sounds simple, but there are multiple ways we can solve this problem. One way is using a join and another way is using in. Now another way is also use exist. So today we are focusing on those last two, the exist and the in. Now we have to prepare the data as you see the customers and the orders table. So here we have six customers. Let me execute this one first. Yeah, but only three of them have placed the orders, and that is Sam, Alice, and Emma. Okay. Now John, David, and Chris haven't placed any orders. One goal is to find only the customers who have orders. Okay. So now before I write the query, think about this thing like what information do we actually need from the orders table? We don't need the products, we don't need the amount, we only need the customer ID. So let's use the in. Okay. Now, yeah. So this is my third query. So in here, the inner query first gives us the customer IDs that appears on the orders table. Okay. So those IDs are 1 and 3 and 5. So then the outer query looks at the customers table and asks, is there customer's ID inside that list? And if yes, the customer is returned. So we get the Sam, Alice, and Emma. Let me execute the query. Yeah, so that as you see, this is the result. Okay, that's the basic idea behind the in. Okay, so we are checking whether a value exists inside a set of values or not. So it will give us the all the scenario from this in. Okay, but what if instead of asking, is this ID inside a list? We ask, does at least one matching order exist for the customer? So there comes the exists concept, and it will become helpful, for this kind of queries. So let me run the fourth query. Yeah, so this is the one. Now in here, this query looks slightly different. Exist checks whether the subquery returns at least one row, and for Sam, SQL checks the order table. Does one order exist where the customer ID matches Sam? If yes, then Sam is returned. SQL then checks John and does a match other order exist? If the order is exist on his name, no. So John isn't returned. None. The same process continues for the remaining customers. Okay. The important thing to remember is exist is asking yes or no question. Does matching row exist? Yes or no? Okay. Then there is some comparison between this exist, okay, in and exist. So now, in basically checks whether a value belongs to a set of checks and whether matching row is exist. Often useful, with a list of subquery and often useful with the correlated subqueries. Okay, and these two basically compares values text, existence. Now it returns the true false conditions also, and it returns the true for script as well. Okay, so here is the easiest way to remember the difference in ask is this value in that set and exist ask you does at least one matching row exist. So these are the two difference. They can produce the same result for many queries, but conceptually they solve the problem differently. Okay, important, this kind of important questions also asked by the interviewer, like which one is the faster, like in or exist, which one is the faster one. So don't answer this one like the exist is always the faster. That not a reliable rule. So the actual performance depends on the database engine, index, data size, data distribution, and the query itself. Modern database optimizers can transform these queries into a similar execution plans. So the better answer you can give to interviewer, like neither is universally faster. I would compare the execution plans and consider the data and index. So that's how I can say it, like which one is the first. Okay, so that's a much stronger answer. This is an excellent interview, distinction because it avoids teaching mislead rules. Okay, so now in let me introduce you with a problem for today. So let's reverse the question. Instead of finding customers who have orders, what if our manager asks us to find the customers who have never placed an order? Okay, let me rewind the question again. Find the customers who have never placed an order. So think about it. What kind of query we can give? So here we have this kind of query comes into the picture. Okay. Now, not exist is incredibly useful for this type of problem. Now we are asking, does an order not exist for this customer? If the answer is yes, we return the customer. So let me execute the query. Yeah. So as you see, you'll get these results. So this is very common real world SQL pattern. Okay, this is worth including in because it makes the episode more interview focused. So now there are one more interview concept is that like be careful when you are using not in if the subquery can contain null. Okay, like suppose let me write the query here for you. Suppose you can say where customer ID not in. Now select customer ID from order 13. This kind of thing. Okay. If the subquery contains null, so SQL three values logic can cause the comparison to behave differently than you expect. Okay. So that's one reason non-exist is one often a safer pattern. Okay, when you are checking for the absence of related rows. So don't memorize that not exist is always a better way. Instead, understand why null can affect not in. Okay, so let's finish this episode with an proper interview question. So, like, what does in do? It checks whether a value matches a value in a specific set of or a subquery result. Okay. Now, let's come to the second question. Like, what does exist check? Like, whether the subquery returns at least one row. Now, let's come to the third question. That is exist always faster than in? No. The performance depends on the database query data index and the execution plan as well. Now let's come the fourth question, that is which is useful for finding customers who have no orders, not exist, is a very common solution. Okay. Now I have one practice challenge for you. Like here's today's challenge is I want to write a query that displays the customer name for customers who have placed at least one order but there's a twist. Okay, so write a query twice, like first using in and then using exist. Okay, now there is one bonus challenge for you guys as well, that is modify the query to return customers who have never placed an order using not exist. Okay, pause the video, try it yourself, and I'll put this solution in the pinned comment. Like for this today's video, we learned in, exist, not exist, and the conceptual difference between them. Why you shouldn't, blindly say that exist is always faster, and how null can affect not in. If there's, you are preparing for the SQL interview, save this episode because exist versus in is a really very common interview topic in these days. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next episode. Till then, bye.